Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our data quality webinar. Hi, Gavin. How are you?
I am.
Yeah, with me this morning, Kieran Kirk. I'm the operations director with Data Builders and IMGS. I see there are a few IMGS customers out there on this call, so don't be afraid. We're not running away. We've just got there are two brands that we now have, which is the old IMGS GIS business and our new Data Builders business, which is very much focused on data analytics and data quality, and which FME is a huge part of what we're doing. I'm the operations director, and Gavin is our lead solutions consultant and expert in all things FME. So Gavin's here to keep me right on some of the things that we've pulled together and make sure that I'm not saying anything I shouldn't be saying, or and maybe even tell me what I'm doing wrong in some of the workbenches I've created. So I think there's a really good turnout this morning. So I think hopefully we've hit a good topic for everybody. I can still see people joining, so just give it a minute and then we'll get going. How are you, Gavin? You're in the UK awaiting snow, I believe, yeah?
Yeah, so we're eagerly awaiting to see whether we're going to get snowed in. The police have said nobody's supposed to travel, so we're going to.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's in Ireland. That's a red warning if you're told not to travel.
Yeah, I think we're on yellow ones at the moment, but it depends where you are. So if you're in the south, then I think they've had quite a bit of snow, so they're starting to worry about it freezing, especially. But I'm still waiting. There's no snowmen yet, so.
All right. Okay. Well, yeah, I think we're forecast something tomorrow, but yeah, we'll see. Yeah, usually it's all clickbait stuff on websites to go, oh, snow's coming, but
yeah,
we'll probably get our usual error.
Yeah, if we get enough for a snowman, everybody will be happy, but I don't think we'll even see that.
Yeah, my kids are dying from a proper amount of snow. They can have a snowball fight and snowman. All right, well, I think we're just at 10:02. There's a good lot of people joined there, so we'll kick off. So welcome everybody to our Data Quality with FME webinar with myself, Kieran Kirk, and with Gavin Parker, our lead solutions consultant. This morning I'm going to talk about data quality, and for organizations, as we kind of mentioned on our last webinar, true digital transformation is elusive. And a lot of organizations are now seen to be 60% behind where they want to be in digital transformation. And a lot of that is caused because there's 47% of them are experiencing data integrity or data quality issues. And also with that, 55% are saying they're having data accessibility issues. So again, not being able to get to the data they need and not being able to get the good quality data that they want. So that is really stopping organizations get the level of digital transformation that they're trying to achieve. And bad data, as you can see, it costs money. As we can see here from Dilbert, in organizations who are using bad data to make bad decisions, it's only going to make worse decisions. So you really need to have good information. You really need to have good data. So that's what is fundamental. If you really want to be an agile data company, you need to ensure you've got very good data, because otherwise people just won't believe the answers to your analytics, they won't believe the insights you're given if it's based on bad data. So you have your customers, your users, your analysts, they have to trust the information, and they have to be able to make sure that the information they're receiving is good so that they can make good decisions. So what are the steps to improve data quality? Well, the first thing you need to do is to integrate all your data sources, integrate your data silos so that you get one true source of data, or as some people might describe it, a golden record, so that you understand what view of your data, what is the one true record for every information, whether that's a single view of a customer, single view of an asset, whatever it is, that's what you need to do. So it's integrate all your data silos, bring the data together so that you can actually have a true view of what we've seen. We've seen customers who have told us where they get different answers for like asset reports because they're getting 3 or 4 different values for what their assets are worth, because the asset data is in 3 or 4 systems and no one knows that they need to pull that data together to get one view of the asset and one view of the asset value. When you start integrating the data together, you will then start seeing very quickly the data issues that are there. So then you have to quantify those issues. So you've got to quantify what data is good, what data is bad, and be able to then mark up or be sure of what your good data is and what your bad data is. Once you've identified the bad data, the next step is to be able to cleanse that information. So you need a system that can cleanse the data, to fix the data, either in one of two ways. That you can fix the data so that when you're putting it into your data warehouse for analytics, that you're preparing the data for the data warehouse and ensuring only good data goes into that data warehouse. Or the other option, which is the better option in the long term, is to fix the data at source. So being able to fix the data in the source systems, being able to use data stewardship apps or data workflows that can actually fix your source information. And finally, to make sure this isn't just a one-off step that you do sometime to fix your information for one project, but never continue to do it and keep building up these problems, you need to automate your data quality. You need to automate your data quality reporting so that you're always monitoring how good your data is and always ensuring that bad data is fixed at source and fixed at the time of entry and not as bulk or batch cleanups at a later stage. And that's where we need a solution like FME. So the FME integration platform comprises of 4 components: FME desktop, FME server, and then FME server in the cloud, which is FME cloud, and then FME mobile, which allows you to deliver the power of FME to your mobile device. With FME, we can solve the data quality issues we're identifying already. So from a data health point of view, FME can tell you where are the data issues, and also then produce your data quality reports. FME can also fix the data, so it can do automatic corrections of data as part of the integration or the workflow or the pipeline. But it can also, as we'll show you this morning, create what's called data stewards. So where you're providing a simple app to the end user or the person who is the owner of the data to make the decision to fix the data. Is the record type A or B? And in some cases, no matter how good the tool, no matter how good the machine learning you're using, some decisions around data just need a human intervention. And to do that, you need some kind of simple app, a data steward app, that allows people to be very quickly make a decision as to, well, this record should use this value or that value. And that means then eventually you'll get to a single source of truth. And as I said already, you need a solution then going forward that is constantly monitoring data quality. So that makes it a team sport, so that all systems are being reported on for data quality, and data quality issues are being alerted and fixed at the time they happen, not after the fact, not using a batch process at a later stage. So with FME, as I said, as you all know, we can connect to over 450 different systems. So we can get rid of all the data silos. So we can make sure you can access all your information. With FME, you can also create custom integrations, and we can stream data in real time. So no matter where your information is, we can bring it together. Whether it's a sensor, whether it's a database, whether it's spatial data, no matter what, we can pull all that information together. FME supports everything from SAP to Maximo to the cloud data warehouses to legacy GIS formats to file formats, you name it. We can bring all this information. And of course, we can connect to Excel data, which seems to be the data owner of choice for a lot of companies, but also the cause of a lot of data issues, because Excel doesn't provide good data validation. And this morning in our demonstration, we're going to show you how we can connect the Excel data, push it to a database, a data warehouse, and then fix that data in the data warehouse and show you how you can potentially fix the data at source. FME has, in the last few years, is one of the things that Gavin and the guys have spent an awful lot of time doing for our customers, is creating reports that using FME. It's interesting that FME is an integration platform, but a lot of our customers use it for doing reporting. And that reporting capability, which allows you to generate reports on demand or scheduled, which can be interactive and responsive in a wide variety of formats from Excel to PowerPoint to HTML, is the ideal solution for data quality reporting. So it's excellent for that, you know where your good data is, where your bad data is, and being able to have that is sent to the stakeholders on a regular basis. So it's not just doing it once and moving and leaving it. It's having it that the data quality reports can be auto-generated all the time. And again, this morning we're going to show you how we can actually do that. So FME also then provides the ability to cleanse your data. So with the level of 500 plus transformers that we have in FME, We can validate to ensure only high quality data gets into your data warehouses, and then we can adjust the workflows to meet your changing requirements. So FME is the perfect tool for integrating data, fixing the data, so it has a lot of transformers which are very good at identifying data quality issues and then being able to fix them based on whatever rules you need to build. And because of the way the desktop works and being able to publish, you can create in a no-code solution some very complex rules to ensure you can fix your data. I've seen with some customers where they may have, like let's say it's a utility, and they might have data in their GIS and they've got data in their asset management system. It might be that for above ground assets, the GIS is the better record. And it might be for below ground assets, the asset management system, say Maximo, is the better record. Well, in FME, you can build the rules in to go, okay, if this is asset type A, use the GIS record. If it's asset type B, use the Maximo record. And it might even get down to another level of granularity. You might say, well, for the name type or the asset type, take that from the GIS. But for the plant order number or whatever, take that from Maximo, or from the asset management system. So that's where FME can be really powerful at bringing information together to then give you that one correct view of your data. And then from that, you can use FME then to look for your data health issues. And I should have used it on this slide because I actually spelled data health wrong. So this data heat. So there you go. I didn't use my own tools. So the key things that FME can do is, naturally, as we all know, FME is the market leading when it comes to GIS, ETL, and looking at GIS data. So it has a number of operators for spatial data. Now, Gavin, I haven't included any this morning. So off the top of your head, any good transformers for checking spatial information?
I was going to say the main one's going to be the geometry validator. So that checks your geometry, whether it meets all of the standards that a lot of spatial databases will use. So there's an industry standard, they'll all use them. And it actually has quite a significant impact because a lot of databases won't process data correctly if your data doesn't meet that standard. So it gives it a really good way of actually checking your data on the way in to make sure it actually aligns with them. And then there's a whole host of other transformers for dealing with some of the problems it can find. So things like the spike catcher, there's an area and gap overlap transformer. So if you're looking for slithers between polygons where people have been digitizing, and again, if you're looking for things like taxation, that's really important because obviously your areas change. So like farm payments is the other one we've been talking about recently. You obviously want those areas to be good. So they're really, really strong transformers for those sorts of processes. And they're probably the go-to ones for if you're doing want to do any spatial processing up front. And they fit into exactly the same workflows we're talking about here. So you can add those as part of that of your data as well. And they'll spot null data, so the geometry filter, is a good one. That's the other classic where you'll have data that somebody just doesn't have a geometry associated with it. And it's really hard to find those records in a mapping system. But obviously we can pull those out, and then you can obviously start to say, well, hang on, nobody's looking at these because we just don't have data, or they're in the completely wrong location. So are they in Ireland, and are they in the right bit of Ireland, or are they floating in the sea somewhere or off of the coast of the Pacific?
And that spatial intelligence is also very good then you've been used to integrate data. So you might have missing geometry in your GIS, but you could have the XY in the asset management system. So you could actually take one from the other and fix. Or if you've got dubious data that people are looking at, but then they realize it was never placed properly, well then, how do you do it? And using the spatial to infer the rules and to fix information based on, it might be a related asset near the point or the line, the cable or feature that hasn't got the geometry, but there might be an asset that's related to it, that's connected to it, that you can then say, well, if it's within that geometry, then it should be using the same location or whatever. So there's lots of rules FME can use there to infer good quality as well.
That spatial filtering to say if a particular asset, should it sit in, should it be under a road? If it happens to sit under a building, is that a problem? So all of that sort of analytics you can build in, that business logic. Is it within a particular distance of something that it shouldn't be within that distance of? So pipelines, for example, they have rules about where you can place them. Are they showing up in the correct location and things?
No, definitely, yeah. And again, we see a lot of that, and that's where FME adds that extra value. Not only can it do the non-spatial validation, which we're going to talk about in a second, but also the spatial side to add that extra value in all in one workflow and all under one hood. Yeah. So then the other things we look at is naturally attributes and data quality when it comes to analytics. If you're doing reports, the attribution is key. And again, managing schemas, what we're now seeing is a variety of disparate data sources and the need to ingest data quicker. So you're getting new schemas, mapping these schemas together, bringing the information together from your disparate systems. That's where FME can also be very clever. And Gavin, I'll let you talk through these few transformers, and you can see some of the ones for the attribution, and then we'll come on to the schema side of things.
Yeah, so I think these are probably the popular ones for checking a lot of your data. So obviously we have the attribute validator, which is the kind of counterpart to the geometry validator we've just been talking about. You can build a lot of rules in there around checking if your data meets certain data types. So, is it a date field, for example? Is it within a particular range? Is it contained in a particular list? Is it null? Does it have an attribute value associated with it? So there's an awful lot of checks you can start to build in there to actually do some of those filtering options to say, is it meeting the business rules that I need? The null attribute mapper is explicitly there to look for null attributes, but it also looks for missing data. So one of its options is it can actually find missing attributes and then work out whether you should be putting a new value in as part of that process, or if it's just a blank value. So it's actually got a degree of subtlety under it that it can identify the difference between something that's actually explicitly been declared as null, something that's missing, and something that's just blank. And it can start to deal with all of those use cases as part of that process. The other one there is the duplicate.
And that checking for null. Anyone who's done any SQL or database stuff, what is null and how do you define it? I remember 20 years ago, having an argument with a customer about what is null, and he was like, define null for me in a database. And yeah, so I think that's a big help when you're looking at all these different legacy formats and data sets. Sorry, Gavin, yeah, null has always been a challenge.
No, it is quite important because I think SAFE themselves said it took 6 months to actually do nothing, because that was the idea they were going through, trying to find how you work and how you implement it for different systems. It's something that seems quite trivial, but when you've got a lot of different formats, it's how do you bring them together and things. It's built as well. The null attribute mapper is there as an explicit transformer, but that same capability we'll notice in a lot of other transformers as well. So you can actually mark your data as null, or you can test data for being null with things like the test transformer. We've got the duplicate filter there. I think it does pretty much what it says on the tin. It's a nice simple one, so you can put in obviously multiple attributes, start to look for your duplicates. If you want to be more subtle about the way you're looking for them, and especially if you're doing a little bit of data analytics, the matcher transformer does a very similar thing to the duplicate filter, but actually outputs the matches. So you can start to see if I have two records that are duplicated, or duplicated across maybe a series of key attributes, where else are they different? So you can pull those ones out. So the duplicate filter is a very good one to get a quick win just to filter out to your data. But if you really want to do that analytical piece, then that matcher transformer works really, really well as well, just to get that bit more detail out of a process. We'll quite often start with that one and then maybe drop into the matcher to work out, where's my data gone wrong? What's the problem with that as part of that process? The other ones that we don't have shown here, but work really well for a lot of these business validation rule ones are the tester, the test filter, the attribute value mapper. We can build all of our rules. Is it this particular thing? We can build with the test filter your kind of case statements. So, if we're doing this, else we want to look at this, and if it's not this. So those ones let you build an awful lot of that business kind of intelligence logic into your workflow to check that your data is meeting the kind of standards that you want, and also that you're putting in data that's actually compliant to your data model. So if you have a particular data model, you can push those ones through as well as part of that. And things like the schema mapper as well will all kind of play into those ones if you want to get a little bit more involved with it. The statistics.
I always think the tester's a badly named one, because you look at it in the workbench and you go, is that just something that's a debug thing? And again, it's very powerful. And I agree. I have we've used it today as well. It's actually one of the more, it should have been on the slide. It's one of the very more powerful tools, and it's used a lot. But when I see it in the workbench, I also go, I don't like the name, but this is me. Maybe I don't like the name tester. It just has connotations of playing with something, but actually, as you said, it is a lot more powerful and can do an awful lot more.
Yeah, and I think that's always one of the challenges with the transformers, especially, is that semantics, because SAFE will obviously have their language that they use, and obviously then it's coming from different domains, or people have different ways of describing things. So sometimes it is that if you are looking for a transformer, it might be because you're thinking that it's in some names in some particular way, and actually it's going to be named slightly differently. The tester, I think, is the number 2, 3 transformer of all the most used. The attribute validator's up there as well. The attribute manager, which is another one that you can do a lot of some of the business logic with. Again, I think it's the number 1 transformer. So they're all, of all the transformers, even though it's probably quite a heavily spatial product in a lot of places, actually it's the non-spatial side that if you look at what dominates, it's all the non-spatial transformers are up there for doing exactly these kind of things. The statistics calculator, if you wanted to actually get an idea of what's in our data, works really, really well for that. And then FME's kind of real unsung power is that ability to do a lot of this, what we call the schema mapping and the schema processing of our data and understanding the schemas of the data at runtime. So if you author a workspace in FME, you're looking at kind of a snapshot or a model of what you want there. But FME also understands what's going on at runtime. So if a user does put something in, and like Kieran was saying, Excel's the classic example, somebody will add a new field, then FME is going to read that data in, it's going to understand it's there. And there are ways of obviously then starting to process that out as well through some of the workflow transformers. So we can do all that classic schema mapping. We can map data based on external data models. So we can make sure our data is compliant with an external model. So if you're targeting things like Inspire, any of the European legislation, they quite often have a defined schema they want to fit data to. And a lot of internal organizations have their own business data models that will be stored externally. We can bring all of that into FME, we can work with that, but we can also check with things like that schema scanner transformer there that the data is actually matching that schema. And SAFE have a term they call this schema drift. And it's for exactly things like that, where an Excel document suddenly drifts away from the schema that you're expecting it to be because somebody snuck in a different attribute or somebody's changed the data type. So that schema scanner can check the data at runtime. It's going to output what FME is seeing when it reads the data set through. It's going to look at the data types and things that go with it. And then you can compare that against a defined schema model to say, well, hang on, is this data meeting it? Where is the variation? And again, with some of the stuff that Kieran's going to show you, you'll be able to see how we can actually start to bounce that back to users. So we don't even have to ingest or process that data if it fails those kind of basic integrity checks as you go through. So there's an awful lot of stuff we can do with these ones. It's just pulling them together to really kind of meet what you need. It's like a big giant box of Lego, and you put it together to meet your business rules as you're processing them.
Oh, definitely, yeah. And that schema mapper as well. Your data warehouse, your data analytics could be a certain schema, and you're bringing the information in to match that. So that's really useful.
And it's dynamic, so it does update. So if you want to change it, you don't change the workflow in FME. You change the spreadsheet, the table, wherever that's stored, and those changes will then fall into FME when you run it. So you're not having to keep coming back in, changing your workflow. It can be highly dynamic if you need it to be.
Yeah, and again, it's reducing that time to insight as we always kind of push so that you can get the data in, but then given the flexibility, but then not letting bad stuff get in either when people are ingesting more faster. So definitely, and with FME, then we can then start looking at doing data quality fixes. So we can use with the FME transformers, we have 400 connectors, so we can change the data at the data warehouse or the mart, and we can provide a complete audit trail of corrections and report of updates. What we're going to show this morning is how quickly it is to create a data preparation or data steward app where you can get users to be able to correct data for you. So you go back to the source. So in an organization, as I mentioned earlier on, there's just some data can't be automatically fixed. It needs a human intervention. No matter how good ChatGPT is going to be and all these other AI tools, there will always be that 5% that needs a manual intervention. So with the Data Steward FME app, we can provide a simple interface to all the users across your organization, no matter where they are, to be able to make a decision and go, yeah, that record should be the following value. Or, yeah, you have a choice between A and B, it should be B or it should be A. And that these apps can then be alerted through whatever medium you require, whether that's something like Teams, email, Slack, whatever it is, we can do those alerting. And again, it can happen at the time of the data being entered, or in the evening or the next day or whatever, not waiting months and then looking back and doing a data quality report and going, oh my God, we've got thousands of records that are wrong. That as the information is coming in, that then being corrected on the same day or the same time or pseudo real time. So then the users are then educated to start doing the data properly, because then they realize, if I fill this in form in wrong, it's going to come back to me and I'm going to be working on it tonight or tomorrow morning or whatever. So they're learning by being educated in being alerting whenever they create data quality issues.
And one thing there is now is there is actually a Chat GPT transformer for FME. So if you do want to bring in that machine learning and do want to use Chat GPT, there are transformers that will let you bring that in, and you can start to pass in things like an address, which has always been a nightmare to try and parse. And people are starting to leverage that Chat GPT to start to find, what's an air, which part's the air code, which part's the town, and actually pull out a more structured data structure from it. So things are evolving, and I think there's more machine learning that will come into that, and there's those integrations already there, kind of that's safer looking at building in.
And even the machine learning, 100%, and it'll help. And it might even be a case of the data steward or data prep app isn't actually making the decision. It could just be approving or validating what was done by the machine learning. So it could be somebody going, yeah, we're testing that, and yeah, we're happy that it made the right change, or yeah, whatever way we want to build that workflow. And also that other piece, which I don't show this morning, but I think you and I were discussing before, Gavin, is if you're moving data through a process to a data warehouse, there may be an improvement stage where somebody has to validate or check off on the data before it gets published or sent to. You mentioned, EU. If you're sharing data with third parties or bodies, it might need a verification before that information is released or sent out.
Certainly, if people are concerned about just automated processes pushing data into effectively production, you can have those checks and balances so that somebody can review and make sure that they're happy with the information that's going in. So if you have a critical data set that you want to review your changes, that can very much be part of a workflow. Just the same automating doesn't just mean it's shove data in and hope for the best. You can put a lot of checks and balances in there to make sure that you keep that integrity and you check your integrity as well as part of your process.
Yeah, and all governed as well, because everything with FME runs through security with data rules and authentication. So people can't just change data they're not allowed to change, and they can't get access to data they're not allowed to change, which is also very important. And then once you've built these processes, your data quality reports, your integrations, you want them to run, as Gavin says, automatically or without intervention. So that's where the automations that are now available in FME are perfect. Being able to automate these processes, to set them up either to run on an event or run based on a schedule. And it means easy to set up using the visual interface in FME, and then you can eliminate the manual effort of getting people to correct data or to generate these reports or view the information. And that's where the automations come in. So I'm going to take my life in my own hands now and flick in and do a bit of a live demo. So the first thing we're going to look at is, if I get the right page, is I have my first workbench, which is really just to take the data from let me just get it here, is to get load our data. So we've got a heap of Excel data, which is based on the old AdventureWorks database. There's some kind of sample information. And in that information, we're just going to load in a heap of CSV data and write it to the PostgreSQL database in FME Cloud. And I won't run it now because it'll just take too long while we're on the call and we're already running. But if I go to my Sisense dashboard and I run the dashboard, it now connects to the PostgreSQL database that I've loaded my Excel data in. And on that screen, you can now see a map, and it shows where we've done sales around the world. But I already can notice that there's nothing in the UK, that the UK is showing no information. Now, I know my sales team in this example, and I know that then there's an issue there. Why am I not getting that report? If I go into my widget in Sisense, I can see that there is based on country region code. And I won't do it now, but I do a little bit more digging, and I find out that the country region code for my UK sales hasn't been populated. So the sales guys in the UK, their system isn't populating the code, so I'm not actually getting the country information. So then what I want to be able to do is to fix that data in my data warehouse. So I want to be able to fix the data. I'm an analyst, I'm not part of the IT group. So I want to be able to fix the information in the data warehouse so that my data will work. So the first thing I need to do is to run a report to actually tell me where the data quality issues are. So I'll just fire up this workbench. So I've created a very simple workspace here. And again, Gavin will shoot me down for some of my bad FME steps on how I'm doing it. But what I have is a reader which connects to my SQL database, and it takes the information in. And then I have a tester. So the tester we mentioned already this morning. In it, I'm looking for our old friend is territory ID null. And if it is null, I want to get a quantity of how many of these records are null and how many are good. And I'm going to push this out to my FME report. Now, I want this to run through an automation on FME server. So if I go to my FME server app, not that one, if I go to this, what we'll see is here I have created a server app. And in that, if I look at the workspace app, I have taken the data prep workspace that you just seen a second ago, and I've published it up to the cloud so that it can run. So I have it up there. That wrap creates a HTML report. So we've created it as a job submitter service when we published it up, and we've added it to a gallery app. So in FME, we can have our gallery apps. All of this is created with no coding. So in the gallery app, I've created a data quality portal. In it, I've added 2 apps that I want to run. The first one is my data quality report that you're seeing now, and the second one will be data preparation, which I'll show you later on. So if I now go to my data quality portal, we can now see that I can run my data quality report. So I click on it, and it'll fire off.
Sorry, that would be the bit the user would see. So you would be able to abstract all that back-end process. They would just land on that nice kind of user-friendly page, and you can customize these to look pretty as well. So certainly the sales guys normally like them to look shiny.
Yes. So, and this is not pretty, as Gavin's rightly pointing out. So in my little data set here, I've got a data quality report which tells me 28,000 records passed and 3,219 records failed. And this is a batch process because we're now putting in our data quality process. What you'd want is that this report will then, going forward, would be automated. So every day, if someone enters in a missing value, that the report is then picking it up, telling the user that that is actually there. So we now know that we have a lot of missing data when it comes to the UK records. So the next thing we have then is our workbench, which is how we're going to fix that data. So it's really simple. So even if you're an analyst, if you're a BI person, you don't have to be part of the BI team to actually make data fixes. So in this case, we have our little record, which is our reader, which is reading information. We're looking for the territory ID equal to null, and we're going to set a rule to fix that data. So we're actually going to get the user to publish, to enter in the value as the published parameter, and that record will then be available through the workspace app, through the server app, so that the user can then fill in the correct value and fix my information. So if I then go back to my app, I can go to my data preparation, I can click on it, and it now says, okay, who are you going to fix? And I think in this case, I'm going to fix the UK, put in the UK records for the ones. Now, again, we could have built this out a little more complex and showed each record. The idea of the app would be as each record is fixed, the user will be prompted through an automation, which I'll show you in a second, to fix each record individually. But in this case, I'm going to do it on bulk. I'm going to hit OK, and I'm going to run my process. So my process is now going to run, and it's going to fix all those records and apply the UK app. But again, you can see, as Gavin mentions, the user would just be presented with this simple form that they can then enter the information. It could be driven by log on. Every user sees their own report, sees their own information, and then they can get at it in a user-friendly way, so that then it's not asking them to fix the data in systems, not asking them to go through loads of manual forms. They can be asked some simple questions using the FME server apps to actually fix your information. So now if I run my data quality report, again, I should be able to run it, and if everything's worked, which it has, I now have all past data, no failed data. So straight away we can see we now have a good report. So that report is running, giving the information out and going back. And now if I go back to my Sisense, now Sisense is on it's a data warehouse, so it does refresh after a couple of minutes. So I might just have to force it to refresh here just to pick up the change. So let me just force a hard refresh. And all being good in the life of live demos, I should now have a UK map, and it should pop up and come back for me.
It's always the tense bit. Is it going to work? This is why I hate doing live demos, because it's a.
It didn't work that time, but we'll come back to that before the end of the demo, and it takes a bit of a minute, I think, for it to refresh, and it will pick up in a second. So we then have our refresh. So we now have our data prep, which we created really quickly. Again, I didn't show you the server app for data preparation. So if we look at the workspace app on that one, it's very simple to set up. We create the app, add the workspace. We just by publishing the workspace from the FME desktop, publish it out, which workspace you want to run, and then what you want to have. And then we have our published parameters. So in this case, we have our choice, which is to pick the country, and it gets sent out and it gets loaded into the database. Once we have our app and it works that way, that's great that I can go in and just click on the portal in the gallery and run my data prep and run my data quality. But actually what we want to be able to have is to automate that. And that's where FME automations comes in really nicely. So with FME automations, I can go in here and go build automation, and I can go create new. And straight away I can say what's the trigger. So in this case, I can configure the trigger. I can select the trigger event. I'm going to be very simple and say it is, where's it gone? It's going to be schedule initiated, and I'm going to pick it daily at a certain time and apply that. And then my next action over here will be to add an action, which is a workspace. Drag that in, and in it, I can now say, okay, I want to run my data quality report. So every day I want to be running the data quality report, apply that. I can then say where I want the HTML file to go. So I can pick a folder, okay, and it'll generate the HTML file that I'm set. But I can then add another action here, which would be maybe to send an email to users who are affected by the data quality, or to run another workspace, or whatever it is that I want to do. We can build these automation out, build the flow line out, so that this is completely automated. So it could be that this process has, the first step is to do the data load from the legacy system. The second step is to run the data quality report. Third step is to then kick off the data preparation or the data fixing stewarding workflows, and all of this can be automatically done and automatically run, so that actually it'll then save. And then once you do that, you save your automation on the server, and all of that is kept manually then to be actually able to be used.
And you've also got those fail ports on there. So with each of those, yes, if any one of those processes fail, you can raise an exception. We can send an alert out. So that little blue paper airplane, you'll have the email options under there, so you can send them. You've also got options to send to a HTTP service. So if you're using a lot of sort of audit tracking software from an IT environment, we can send a message out to those systems to say something's occurred. We use it to send stuff to Microsoft Teams. So you can have a Teams channel that then flashes up. People are aware of things that go on. There's good integration into existing business messaging systems with the JMS, also AWS and Azure event messaging. So, all of your cloud platform message brokers are covered in there as well. So you've got a lot of extensive alerting or just notifications. So you can use it for saying a process is complete. A lot of our customers like to know things have worked as well as things that haven't worked. And again, we can send those reports out that Kieran was showing as part of that notification process as well.
Yeah, and that means it's a automatic, no human intervention, but you're constantly keeping your data quality up to scratch. And even we could have in that, Gavin, as you're saying, if there's no data quality issues, we can branch out and exit the automation. Yep. So if there's 0 records, then you jump out. If there's records, then we start, well, okay, we go to another automation, which is, right, who's the responsible user? Okay, let them know, because you're not automating everybody, but you might be sending a manager saying, yeah, you've got 50 data quality record issues tonight, so we need to sort them out, or whatever needs to be done. Yeah, and that's it. Now, hopefully that little delay in time has given my dashboard a chance to refresh. What do you think, Gavin? Was it going to refresh?
Should do. Normally takes a little while to pull it through.
I might republish. I might add the widget again, because I think that's probably what's doing it. So if I configure the widget and delete that and add the country code again, just to prove. So it's country reading code. Oh, it's definitely making a fool of me. All right. One more time in the refresh, and then we'll go back to our slides.
It always knows when you're doing it live, because that's the point where it suddenly decides, actually, I'm not going to refresh right now. I'm just going to wait.
So yeah, because there is a setting on that portal as the server one. So it's supposed to be live, but it is a couple of minutes. It's pseudo live. So we'll give it one more second just to prove that it has fixed the data in the dashboard. No, it's not going to do it. Okay.
As it's a demo server, the refresh sync isn't as controlled, whereas if you've got your own implementation, then you've obviously got a lot more fine-grained control about that sync refresh. And obviously, because it's reading a direct live from the database, then what you put in will come through quite quickly normally, apart from when you do a live demo. Because
yeah. So okay, and I've definitely run out of time. So the just to move on then, the summary of what we talked about today: data quality is a huge challenge for every organization. FME provides a cost-effective platform to build data quality as a team sport. And by focusing on data quality, you can begin to deliver on the promise of digital transformation. So you can see we have with FME a very mature platform for checking data, fixing data, and then automating all this, so that it's not manual interventions all down the line. FME is part of our data intelligence platform, so we use Snowflake to store data in the data warehouse. Should have used Snowflake this morning, not PostgreSQL maybe. I got the live refresh. And we use Sisense for the analytics to get the kind of dashboards we're talking about. Upcoming webinars. Next month, we're going to have our Sisense, latest Sisense release webinar. Some great stuff coming out with Sisense in the last few months. Again, ChatGPT is there as well, and a lot more AI tools. So Connor and myself will be back in next month to show you all that. And then in May, we're going to come back and do one of the final FME, where we're going to start looking at how FME can handle big data. Again, looking at cloud data warehouses and how we can move information, and a lot of the serverless capabilities that's coming, Gavin, with FME and dynamic engines, and really what's changing there, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think the automations, as well as you were just alluding to, is where some of that really big scalability comes in, because you can really start to leverage there a lot of parallel processing within those automations, as you were just kind of showing us, joining the different workspaces up, so you can start to get really high throughput coming in for some of those implementations as well.
Definitely, yeah. And actually, probably, the automations and splitting it and using different engines and threads. Yeah, no, 100%. And that's our presentation. We're about on time. I actually should have said at the start, if you have any questions, please put them in the QA. We will give a second to see if any questions come in now. Sorry, I should have said that earlier on. So if you have any questions on what we've seen, and we have Gavin here for some of those FME guys who might have some other queries, please stick them in. We'll give a minute, and if not, if we don't see any other questions, we'll let everybody go. And thanks for all the applause. It's very nice.
One thing we probably should say is that you built this one, so actually, in terms of simplicity, you've not gone and cheated and got the engineers to build them for you. It's
no.
to show it that it's a very simple system to build them.
Oh yeah, don't shoot it down. It was good. It wasn't that simple. Yes, no, that is very true. That yeah, what we've seen today in the demo, literally, I wouldn't be an FME expert. I usually would focus on the Sisense side. But yeah, I spent maybe a day and a half preparing what we've done today. So literally, from creating the first workbench to load the data, to creating the data prep workflow, to publishing out the server apps, and then creating the HTML report, and everything there you've seen this morning. So I do think it's a big takeaway. FME is really easy to build these things, and you don't have to be a coder. You don't have to be a programmer to use it. You know, you can. It is a no-code or low-code solution, and I have been impressed by what I've been playing with over the last day or so, and how we can actually build out these apps. So it is pretty cool now. How you can build the server apps and the galleries and everything, like it's fairly straightforward.
And there's a lot actually coming in 2023, so the next release, to actually make those more dynamic, to make them a little bit more agile as well. So there's definitely a lot of work going on that's coming to fruition now to make these very, very powerful.
And is that when you say 2023, is that the release coming up?
Yep, so late April, so it'll be the new release. So there's more capability around the server apps coming in, dynamic parameters, and obviously then the more dynamic engines as well, about basically where they'll be located to do your data processing close to the data. So you don't, FME would be a core, but then you can distribute it around wherever your data portfolio is to then process data close to it.
Okay, cool. Yeah. And again, yeah, not moving the data around. So yeah, cutting that latency. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And cost as well.
And cost. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah, leaves data restored. Yeah. All right, Gavin. I think we have no other questions, so I think we'll call it a day today. I thank Tanya in the background, who's keeping an eye on everybody and making sure everything's working. And thank you all for attending again. These little there is a question that's come in: spatial accuracy and topology issues as it covers. Spatial accuracy and topology issues as it covers. I suppose, yeah, the question is, maybe I'm assuming the question is, how does FME handle spatial accuracy? I think it's through the tolerances, Gavin, and topology issues. Maybe
so there are topology transformers that will look and build your topology and check topology. There's a lot of capability buried in there as part of that process. FME is very, very fine grain. It will, if you put data in that is down to an atom, it will check your data aligns up to that level if you want it to, or you can use some of those tolerances Kieran mentions to actually then bring that up to a sensible level. We can round coordinates up to put them into the correct place. So FME's had a long track history of actually doing data validation for all people, the national mapping agencies, for example, around the world, for different government departments, to actually look up, does my data sit correctly? And then, is it things like, do I have a pipe crossing a particular river? Is that marked as being correct? Where do those nodes at that point end? Can I split them to make sure that's correctly covered for those sorts of things? There's a very rich tool set that sits there to support those kind of capabilities.
Okay, and thanks, Gavin. Yeah, I think that's it. There's no other questions. Okay, guys, listen, thanks everybody for attending. I just would say, these data events that we've arranged with the FME and Sisense this Christmas, we've had every event has got more and more attendees, so we're really happy. And if you have any questions, if you would like to dive a bit deeper or talk a bit more, please reach out to myself or Gavin or to Connor, who runs after sales and on the data builder side, and we'd be more than happy to help you. But again, yeah, thanks everybody for coming this morning, and hope you've all had a good day. Thanks, Gavin. Thanks, Tanya.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.